Imagine it's 1960. If your heart starts failing, if the very pipes feeding the engine of your life clog up, you are, to put it bluntly, a walking ghost. Doctors could give you nitroglycerin for the pain or tell you to rest, which was essentially medical code for wait for the end. But in a quiet operating room at Bronx Municipal Hospital Center, a man named Robert Goetz is holding a needle. He's about to do something. Most of his peers think is a one-way ticket to a malpractice suit. He isn't just going to fix a heart, he's going to build a detour around death. Today is 25th of April 2026, and looking back, we take heart surgery for granted. But today, we are going back to the moment the impossible became a heartbeat. This is the story of the first successful coronary bypass. To understand the breakthrough, we have to understand the plumbing. Your heart is a pump, but it also needs its own fuel. This comes via the coronary arteries. For decades, the Widowmaker was a death sentence. Cholesterol builds up, the pipe narrows, and suddenly, the muscle dies. By the mid-20th century, heart disease was the leading killer in the West, and surgeons were desperate. Before the bypass, surgeons tried some truly out-of-the-box ideas, which includes the Beck procedure, literally rubbing the heart with a sandpaper to create inflammation, hoping new blood vessels would grow. It surely didn't work well. Number 2 includes the Feinberg internal memory implant, taking a chest artery into a hole poked in the heart muscle. It was clever, but inconsistent. The medical establishment was terrified of the coronary arteries. They were small, they moved constantly, and if you messed up, the patient died instantly on the table. The consensus: don't touch them. Enters Dr. Robert Goetz. He wasn't your typical Ivy League surgeon. He was a German immigrant, a bit of an outsider, but incredibly meticulous. Goetz had a theory: if a bridge is broken, you don't try to pave the air, you build a side road. He wanted to take the internal memory artery and stitch it directly into the right coronary artery, bypassing the blockage entirely. Goetz knew that human hands were shaky, so he used a special tool, a small tantalum ring. Think of it like a tiny medical-grade structural coupling. Instead of just sewing two ends together, which would collapse the vessel, he used the ring to keep the connection open. The goal was to ensure the pressure gradient remained stable. If we look at the flow rate, it is governed by Poiseuille's law. Goetz knew that even a tiny increase in the radius of the vessel via a bypass would exponentially increase the blood flow to the starving heart muscle. Comes the operation day. The patient was a 38-year-old man. In 1960, 38 was far too young to be dying of end-stage chest pain. He had nothing to lose. The atmosphere in the OR was tense. Goetz worked without a heart-lung machine, meaning the heart was still beating. Every stitch had to be timed with the thumping of the muscle. Imagine trying to sew two wet pieces of spaghetti together while someone is shaking the table. That was the reality. He diverted the memory artery. He placed a tantalum ring. He made the connection. For a moment, the room went silent. Then they released the clamps. The new vessel filled with blood. It didn't leak. It didn't burst. The heart, which had been struggling and discolored, began to pulse with a healthy, vibrant rhythm. The detour was open for business. You would think that Goetz would be an overnight hero, right? A parade, a Nobel Prize. Actually, the medical community ignored him. Some even criticized him for being too radical because he used the ring instead of a pure suture. Purists looked down on the technique. Goetz was so discouraged by the pushback that he never performed the surgery again. He moved on to the other things, and the first bypass became a footnote for years. It wasn't until the late 60s, when surgeons like Rene Feveluru at the Cleveland Clinic popularized the saphenous vein graft using a leg vein, that the bypass became the gold standard. But Goetz did it first. His patient lived for another year before dying of an unrelated issue, and the autopsy proved the bypass was still wide open. It had worked perfectly. Today, nearly 400,000 coronary bypass surgeries are performed every year in the US alone. It is the procedure that turned a death sentence into a manageable condition. We owe it all to a man with a tantalum ring, a steady hand, and the courage to ignore the experts who said it couldn't be done. Next time you hear a heartbeat, remember, it is not just a muscle. It is a masterpiece of engineering, sometimes with a little help from the detour. Thanks for watching. If you found this trip through medical history pulse pounding, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the operating table.